Yes, my pleasure. Yes, we can hear each other. Great.
Awesome.
Excellent. Now, Melissa, what I was trying to say to you beforehand was congratulations. Your narration or the way you tell the story, I couldn't put it down. And I was saying to Brian, I got so upset that when you're listening to a series or watching a series and you're so into it and you just think it's going to go forever, and then all of a sudden, bang, you're up to date, and which happened to me. So the 5th episode is now out, which I'm not yet up to date with, but I tell you what, it is a tragic story, but it's a big story, and I'm quite embarrassed to, in our sort of work, you can get quite busy, and I suppose it happened at holiday time, and I wasn't maybe catching up with the news as much. I didn't know anything about this story, and I know it's a massive story in Australia,
No.
and I didn't at all, Melissa, and we often go overseas at that time of the year, and holy dooly, what a story.
Yeah. Well, look, it's Australia's first Christian terror attack.
Yeah.
That's what it has been like. It was Queensland's deadliest police shooting, and it was just one of those stories where, look, there was that initial ambush of those 4 young country coppers. 2 were killed instantly. 2 put in just extreme circumstances to run for their lives to try to get out. And then following that initial ambush, 16 other country coppers tried to get in to save the 2 who survived, retrieve the bodies of their 2 colleagues. Then the full force of the police service going out there, because they really didn't know what they were up against. I mean, they just had, 2 officers killed, 4 attempted to be killed. They knew there were 2 shooters, but they didn't know who else was on the property.
No.
So the full specialist police went out there, had an hours-long siege, ended up killing the 3 offenders, who we know as Gareth, Nathaniel and Stacey Train. And then it was kind of in the days after that we found out more about the Trains. And that was equally shocking, the fact that Nathaniel Train had been a school principal.
Yeah.
Train had also been a teacher. They had been well-loved, respected members of the community. And within a year, it was during COVID, like it was that sort of post-COVID era, they had gone down a rabbit hole.
Wow.
And look, and far more than just conspiracy theory, extreme Christian views, accelerationism, premillennialism, these are terms that we talk about in the podcast. Yep. And learning about them and how they descended into that mindset where they considered police devils, demons. They talked about virtuous violence, that they were entitled to do that you had to do that to protect yourself. And then, of course, there was that weird thing that I did hear you talking about, the fact that Stacey had been married to Nathaniel first.
Oh, no.
They'd had 2 children. They'd split up when the kids were young. And then she married Gareth. And so Stacey and Gareth were living in Wieambilla, and Nathaniel had been teaching in northern New South Wales. And it was sort of in that COVID era, about a year before the incident, that's when he came into Queensland. He came across the border illegally because he hadn't been vaccinated. And that was at that time when Queensland was very strict about its borders and New South Wales was a COVID hotspot. So he, Gundawindi, which is out west, he just, through a crossing. So he entered Queensland illegally. And that was part of, then a year later, why the officers were going to their property, because there was a missing persons call out for Nathaniel and also an arrest warrant because he had crossed the border illegally. So there were just so many levels of this story. And, and then the other part of it was Gareth and Stacey recorded a video after that initial ambush where they'd shot and killed the 2 officers, 2 other officers escaped. They recorded this very creepy video, just this light, on their face. And one of the things they talked about was, we'll see you at home. We love you, Don.
Don.
Now,
yes.
Don, who the hell was Don, right?
Yeah.
Weren't sure if it even referred to anything. A year later, Queensland police, who'd been working with the FBI, arrested Donald Day Jr. in Arizona, in America.
Wow.
And he has been charged with inciting the Trains to this mindset. So this is kind of the story as we know it. But of course now, here we are, the inquest started yesterday, and so much more information has come out. The police body cam, Randall Kirks, who was one of the officers who survived, his body cam of the day,
Wow.
of them entering the property, just walking up the driveway, chatting, because it was a routine check, no
Yeah.
drama. And then his video after his two colleagues had been shot, he had to run about 100 metres. He was hiding behind a tree. That was his cover.
Wow.
He had one tree, it was pretty sparse. Then he had to run to another tree. Then he had to run 100 metres to get back to the car. And we heard and saw all of that from his body cam. He's like, I've lost a shoe. I can't hear anything. The guns,
Wow.
the fire. I've been hit, but I don't know where. There's blood, but I don't know where I've been shot. You can imagine that adrenaline of running for your life. There's so many details of the inquest, which, I can't tell you. I'd love to tell you all of them,
I
but
know.
so many details, even things like they had their Glocks, they had their weapons, the police, but they only have an accuracy for about 15 metres. The trains, they were hidden in these very sophisticated setups. They were shooting from 60, 70 metres, further away. So they had no chance of returning fire. It didn't even matter that they had a gun.
Melissa, were they known to police before they got the call out?
They had no criminal history. Gareth had a charge from, I think it was 1998, from an unlicensed weapon, but no red flags. No red flags. So when they went to the property that day, it was a call from New South Wales Police for this missing persons check. But yep, they put their names in the system. No red flags. No criminal histories, except for that one sort of unregistered gun from 1998, which, it could have expired, that sort of thing. So they went out there, those officers, completely unaware of what they were walking into.
Yeah, fascinating. It's going to be interesting to hear from Kerry Dare, who's the partner of the late Alan. He was the neighbour who went to check on things.
Yeah.
You're going to hear from, Rachel McCrow. What about her story and how brave she was? So she's under the pump.
She's an officer?
Yeah, and only new to the business, really. And then Melissa, she has the mindfulness to turn on the body cam, and that itself shows stuff probably a bit too heavy for radio, but you can certainly hear it in the podcast.
So, Melissa, just going back to the description.
Yes.
Christian terrorist.
Yeah.
Is that a new thing? Is that a new?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's Christian fundamentalist terrorism. They believed that Jesus was coming back. They believed in the second coming of Jesus Christ, that he was going to rule for 1,000 years. This accelerationism, this belief, is about people sowing seeds of chaos to accelerate the demise of society so that Jesus, Christianity can rise again. It's very extreme Christian beliefs.
And is that,
and again,
and
that whole thing of...
Sorry, Melissa, Don, where do they come across Don? Was it just on the YouTube?
Yeah.
That's all it was.
They were commenting on each other's YouTube pages.
So they never met this dude in person. They just scrolling, going down a rabbit's warren, and they came across Don.
And they developed a close relationship online. So they I guess, started commenting on each other's videos. You start a conversation, and they developed a very close relationship. As we saw from the video, Stacey saying, "Love you, Don."
Wow.
So they obviously were very tight with him in their own minds, and he faces court later in the year in America on five charges relating to inciting the trains and sort of leading them down this mindset.
Which he's pleaded not guilty to. Is that right, Melissa?
He has pleaded.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Had he incited anyone else over in America or here?
Look,
he been?
Yeah, he did. He does have a history of online not radicalization, but of this online presence.
Gotcha.
But I at this point I can't recall exactly. But he has a history. And he's well known online within those circles, I guess, and that's how they met. But yes, you did mention Alan Dare. I mean, he was the neighbour, lived across the road. So they, the Nathaniel had been up there with Gareth and Stacey for a year, Kerry and Alan, who lived just down the road, had seen them only, a couple of times, hardly even knew them. They live on these big blocks. They're about 100 acres. So you don't really, catch up with your neighbours that much, I suppose. But when the train set fire to one of the police cars, of course, the smoke went up. Kerry and Alan had heard the gunshots, but that's not uncommon. But, of course, they heard then automatic gunfire, which is illegal. And so they knew, that was off. But they, again, were like, well, maybe, I don't know. And then they saw the fire. So Alan and his neighbour Vic, they went to investigate. And it was while they were at the front of the property, there's the burning car, which they didn't immediately recognise as a police car because it was just, fully engulfed in flames. And we saw he was filming on his phone. And they're looking around initially thinking it's a stolen car, someone set it alight. And then Alan says he's looking down the driveway to the train's house and he says, oh, there's another car. I just saw someone get out of there. What the? And that's when they stopped the video. And it was after that he was shot.
Did the police come in straight away and did they kill them dead straight away, or did they try and negotiate?
No. So what happened was, the first two officers, Rachel McCrow and Matthew Arnold, were shot, and Matthew died almost instantly. Rachel died within 7 minutes. When the trains came up, she'd been shot 3 times. He came up and shot her in the head at point blank range.
With her gun?
Well, we found out today, not with her gun, with a rifle. So he took her gun,
right,
but she had in fact got 15 shots off.
Right.
But when she was on the ground,
wow,
she got 15 shots off. And the other thing we heard, which we didn't know before, her body cam was recording.
Yeah.
And she was giving bullet sit reps, so situation, explaining what's happening there. And she also recorded a message for her family.
Oh, no.
Really?
Because she'd just seen her colleague killed beside her. She's shot 3 shots, and this fellow in camouflage coming towards her.
Wow.
So he did grab her gun, but he shot her with a rifle at close range. So then Randall is hiding behind a tree. Keely Bruff, who had only been in the job for 9 weeks, she's hiding in the grass. Randall is able to leg it out of there. Keely was in that grass for 2 hours on the phone to 000, whispering because the train come out. We know you're there. They set fire to the grass, and she's there on 000 saying, it's 15 metres away from me. 10, 8, 3, 2, 1. To that point, she could feel the heat of the flames, but she couldn't move because if she did, they were going to shoot her. So she was on the phone to 000. So that's when 16 other country coppers came together. They knew their mates were in trouble, and they came in and at about 6:30, the 000 caller said, Keely, you need to run for it now.
Oh, wow.
The extraction. And she did. And they managed to get her out. Randall had already managed to escape. And then basically they kind of, I guess, formed a perimeter to make sure no one else came out, none of the offenders. And then they waited until the specialist police officers arrived from Brisbane. So you had 2 helicopters, you had CERT, all the specialist police, the big Bearcat, all the equipment. They went in there and had an hours-long gunfight with the trains, I think trying to get them into custody. But then
you're saying they didn't want to kill them.
I don't think initially.
Oh.
I think
they had no choice in the end.
No, but even after knowing that 2 of their colleagues had been shot and killed, you still think they would have gone in there and negotiated, or they just would have thought? I mean, I can't speak for them, but
no. Well, I don't know. I think the procedure would be to try to get them into custody and take the stand and all of that, and the why and why it happened. But yes, they once the police decided we're taking them out, they were dead within 5 minutes of each other.
Wow.
The 3 of them.
Hey, Melissa, we'd love to catch up later on because this has been fascinating. The board has melted down. And, Brian, once you start this podcast, you can't...
So just get it where
Mate,
podcasts are.
Melissa mentioned the helicopters.
Yep.
There's communication of the helicopters talking about the whereabouts of the POIs, the person of interest.
Yeah.
It is
a lot like legit recording.
Oh, mate, it is riveting.
Recording.
And a big reason it's riveting is because the voice you're hearing right now is the voice narrating it. Melissa, congratulations on it. I know it's a tragic tale to share, but gee, you and the team there at Channel 9 do a fantastic job. Well done.
Thank you. We just hope that people, again, realise what our police officers go, our police officers go. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on True Crime Tuesday, Melissa, and the Run Home with Joel and Fletch. The Ultimate Sacrifice is the podcast. It is flying and very tragic tale, no doubt about that. But I tell you what, there is a great insight into it all. Melissa Downs, absolute star, and who's on a 6 o'clock bulletin too, by the way. So squeeze us in, Brian. Thank you, Melissa. We'll catch you soon.